Welcome to part 2 of what do the suttas actually say about the Brahma viharas. So the first thing I want to do is share my screen. So what I want to do now is look at Majjhima 7, the simile of the cloth. A cloth that was dirty and soiled, no matter what dye is applied, would look poorly dyed and impure in color. Why is that? Because of the impurity of the cloth. In the same way, when the mind is corrupt, the state of misery, a bad destination is to be expected. When the mind is corrupt, things are going to go badly. That's what it's saying. Cloth that was pure and clean, no matter what dyes applied, would look well dyed and pure in color. Why is that? Because of purity of the cloth. In the same way, when the mind isn't corrupt, a good destination, going well, is to be expected. What are the corruptions? Upekkhā. What are the corruptions of mind? And here's a list. There are quite a number of different lists of things. There's the 5 fetters, the 10 fetters, the 5 hindrances, the 3 asavas. This is a fairly lengthy list. Covetousness and immoral greed, ill will, anger, acrimony, disdain, contempt, jealousy, stinginess, deceit, deviousness, obstinacy, aggression, conceit, arrogance, vanity, and negligence. So I'm assuming none of you have any of these. And if you do, you recognize it and make it go away immediately. What to understand that these corruptions of the mind, that these are corruptions of the mind, gives them up. When they have understood these corruptions of the mind for what they are and have given them up, they have experiential confidence in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So the idea is that if you give up these corruptions of mind, then your life is better. It's like, hey, this guy knew what he was talking about. It works. When they have discarded, eliminated, released, given up, and relinquished to this extent, they find inspiration in the meaning and the teaching, and they find joy, pamoja, connected with the teaching. When you really understand the teaching and it works, when you apply it and it works, you experience, usually pamoja is translated as gladness. When they're gladdened, piti springs up. When the mind is full of piti, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, they feel sukha. When they feel sukha, the mind becomes immersed in samadhi, concentrated. This again, as I mentioned yesterday, I'm calling the Jhanas summary. Because if you move through the first 4 jhanas, this is exactly what you experience. And so once you've given up the upekkhā and you see that your life is better, that's pretty cool. And you can move into the jhanas. And once you've moved into the jhanas, then you meditate with the 4 Brahma viharas, sending love to each of the 4 directions, above, below, across, everywhere, all around. One spreads a heart full of love to the whole world, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. And the same for compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. Knowing and seeing like this, their mind is freed from the defilement of sensuality, kama asava. Okay, kama asava, I put down here is kama plus asava plus api. And it's the same for the avasava and abhijja. Chitta's mind or heart, or more accurately, heart-mind. And this is freedom. So the asava of sensual desire, the intoxicant of sensual desire, one's mind is freed from that. The intoxicant of becoming. So the intoxicant of becoming, I want to become rich and famous, or I want to become, well, we have so many things we want to become. We're intoxicated by that. We're freed from that intoxicant. And avijja, ignorance. We're freed from our ignorance. When they are freed, they know they're freed. They understand birth is ended. The spiritual journey has been completed. What had to be done had to be done. There's nothing further here. This is called one who is bathed with inner bathing. The beginning of this sutta was about the cloth, and you bathe it in the dye. What follows this is another discourse that's been jammed into it. It's in verse, and basically, that physical bathing is pointless for purifying dark deeds. I'm sure you're aware in India, in Hinduism, you go to the Ganges River and you bathe to wash away your dark deeds, your bad karmic actions, and so forth. And the Buddha says, no, that doesn't do any good at all. For the pure in heart and clean of deed, their vows will always be fulfilled. It's here alone that you should bathe, Brahman, making yourself a sanctuary for all creatures. In other words, don't go dip yourself in the Ganges. Practice the Brahma viharas. Okay, move on to one that you might be familiar with, the famous Kalama Sutta. The Buddha visits the town of the Kalamas named Kesamutta. After polite greetings, they said to the Buddha, "There are, Venerable Sir, some ascetics and Brahmins who come here. They explain and promote their own doctrine while they attack, badmouth, disparage, and smear the doctrines of others. Then some other ascetics and Brahmins come. They too explain and promote only their own doctrine while they attack, badmouth, and smear doctrines of others. So, Venerable Sir, we are doubting and uncertain. I wonder who of these respected in Brahma speaks the truth and who speaks falsehood." It is right, Kalamas, for you to be doubting and uncertain. Don't go by oral transmission. Don't go by lineage. Don't go by testament. Don't go by canonical authority. Don't rely on logic. Don't rely on inference. Don't go by reasoned train of thought. Don't go by the acceptance of a view after deliberation. Don't go by the appearance of competence. Don't think the ascetic is our respected teacher. But when you know for yourselves, these things are unskillful, blameworthy, criticized by wise people, and when you undertake them, they lead to harm and dukkha, then you should give them up. So this is the Buddha's teachings on what teachings to follow. See where the teachings lead. And what leads to harm and dukkha? Greed, hatred, and delusion. So pay careful attention to any teachings you're receiving from anybody, including me, all right, to make sure that what's being said isn't tending to take you in the direction of greed, hate, or delusion. The greed ones are pretty easy to see. If they're asking for a lot of money, okay, that's a sure sign this is not going in the right direction. If they're telling you to hate on people, this is definitely not going in the right direction. The delusion one is the more difficult one, right? But you're going to have to be wise enough. And in order to see the delusion, you're probably going to need wisdom both from the culture in which you live, as well as wisdom from the Buddha's teachings, and just look and see what teachings are promoting things that are wise. But when you know for yourselves, these things are skillful, blameless, praised by wise people. When you undertake them, they lead to welfare and happiness. Then you should acquire them and keep them. So when you hear teachings that are skillful, blameless, praised by the wise, and when you undertake them, they lead to welfare and happiness, then that's what you want to work with. And what does not lead to harm and dukkha? Non-greed, That is the absence of desire, moderation, non-hatred, kindness, wisdom, clear understanding. So the opposites of greed, hatred, and delusion. Then that noble disciple is rid of desire, rid of ill will, unconfused, aware, and mindful. And they practice the four Brahma viharas. And it's given every time pretty much exactly the same. Love, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. When that noble disciple has a mind that's free of enmity and ill will, uncorrupted and purified, they've won 4 consolations in this very life. These are possible things. Buddha's not saying it is like this or not, but if it turns out there is another world and good and bad deeds have a result there, when the body breaks up after death, I'll be reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. So if there's life after death, pretty much everybody who says there's life after death, the quality of what you're going to experience depends on, what you've done while you're here. Okay, so if they're correct, you've taken care of that because you've taken care of the bad deeds, you're only doing the good deeds. If it turns out there is no other world, and good and bad deeds don't have a result, then in this very life, I'll keep myself free of hate and ill will, untroubled and happy. This is the second consolation they've won. So no matter whether there is life after death or not, if you behave in this life, people will like you, right? It's you just get along better with people. It works better if you do that. If it turns out that bad things happen to people who do bad things, since I have no bad intentions, and since I'm not doing anything bad, how can dukkha touch me? Okay, so I'm behaving in a way that should produce wholesome results. Now, it's no guarantee. Sometimes bad things do happen to good people. Sometimes good things happen to bad people. But you've got a much better chance of having good things happen to you if how you're behaving is in a way that doesn't cause harm. If it turns out that bad things don't happen to people who do bad things, then I will see myself pure on both sides. In other words, if I can do bad things and get away with it, doesn't matter. But it keeps me, people will like me better. The way it's put in this particular sutta is a little confusing, a little unclean, I would say. It needs to be polished up. And there is a sutta, it's number 60 in the Middle Length Discourses, that actually does a much better job of describing this. If you're familiar with Pascal's wager, Pascal wager is about, okay, should you believe in God or not? And Pascal says, well, of course you should, because if there is, then you're good. But if you don't believe it and there is a God, oh, you're in big trouble. But if there's no God and you believe, no harm. And if there is no God and you don't believe, well, okay, you'd be all right probably. But the third one, if there is no God and you believe there is one, that's delusion. You actually will have a better life if you're not full of delusion. And so I'm not buying Pascal's wager, but the Buddha does a much better job. But when you read that sutta, see if you can get Bhikkhu Bodhi's version of it. So this sutta says, practicing the four Brahma viharas leads to being reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm, if there is another world for lay people. It's appeared to me as I studied all this that being reborn in the Brahma realms basically occurs for people who are lay people, and they're not actually getting far enough into the teachings to overcome the sense of self. So you'll be in a Brahma realm when you're practicing this. Remember at the end of the Metta Sutta, the last line before you get to the verse that I think is added later, this is abiding in a Brahma vihāra, right? So practicing love is living in a Brahma vihāra. And so what the sutta basically is saying, if you practice these, you'll be reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm, if there is another world. But if there's not, you'll keep yourself free of enmity, ill will, untroubled and happy. And that's also considered a Brahma vihāra, here and now. You don't have to wait till you're dead.